The Running Man wasn't just a movie. It imagined a nightmare future where no one truly escaped the game. It thrilled us, terrified us, and kept us running. But nearly 40 years later, the real shock lies beyond the screen. Behind the cameras came injuries, broken relationships, and sudden death. Stay with us as we uncover who they were then, and what time did to them. Arnold Schwarzenegger as Ben Richards. Arnold Schwarzenegger was born on July 30th, 1947, in Thal, Austria. At 40 years old, he played Ben Richards, a wrongfully accused man turned into a hunted television spectacle, in The Running Man. The role gave the film its moral backbone, transforming explosive action into a sharp critique of media cruelty and state control. That sense of defiance was forged early. Arnold grew up in post-war poverty under a rigid and violent father, in a home without comfort or encouragement. Skinny, insecure, and angry, he discovered bodybuilding as both escape and armor. That obsession pushed him to leave Europe for America, where raw ambition turned into momentum through pumping iron, then into global recognition with Conan the Barbarian and The Terminator. His private life unraveled at the height of fame. In 1986, he married Maria Shriver, linking Hollywood stardom with political royalty, and together they raised 4 children. The marriage collapsed in 2011 after the revelation that Arnold had fathered a son, Joseph Baena, with household employee Mildred Baena, a secret that detonated the family from within. The divorce, finalized in 2021, remains the personal failure Arnold has publicly described as his deepest regret. At the same time, his body demanded its own reckoning. Born with a bicuspid aortic valve, Arnold underwent major heart surgery in 1997, followed by emergency open heart surgery in 2018 and another valve replacement in 2020. Recovery forced him into moments of vulnerability rarely seen in his career, as the man built on strength had to relearn breathing, movement, and patience. Today, Arnold Schwarzenegger is 79 years old and continues to work across film, television, business, and fitness advocacy. With an estimated net worth of about $1.2 billion, he remains active as a producer and public figure, carrying forward a legacy shaped as much by consequence and repair as by power and fame. Maria Conchita Alonso as Amber Mendez. Maria Conchita Alonso was born on June 29, 1955, in Cienfuegos, Cuba. At 30 years old, she played Amber Mendez, a fearless ally who challenges the system, in The Running Man. Her performance added urgency and emotional weight, giving the film a rare female counterforce within its violent dystopia. Her early life was defined by displacement. Forced to leave Cuba as a child after the revolution, Maria grew up in Venezuela, carrying the instability of exile and the pressure to rebuild from nothing. Beauty pageants became her first opening, but survival required more than crowns. Music and acting turned into tools of reinvention. She moved between music and film, releasing successful albums while building a screen career with Moscow on the Hudson and Colors. Later roles in Predator 2 and The House of the Spirits proved her range, while her historic turn on Broadway in Kiss of the Spider-Woman marked a breakthrough few Latin actresses had achieved at the time. Her personal choices kept the focus on work. Maria never married and had no children, dedicating her life to touring, recording, and acting across languages and markets. The price of that independence was instability, as shifting trends in Hollywood required her to fight for relevance through persistence rather than protection. Now, Maria Conchita Alonso is 71 years old and remains active on stage and in music, touring internationally and performing cabaret shows that reflect on her life and career. With an estimated net worth of around $8 million, she stands as a testament to endurance in an industry where longevity often demands reinvention rather than retreat. Yaphet Kotto as William Laughlin. Yaphet Kotto was born on November 15, 1939, in New York City, USA. At 48 years old, he played William Laughlin, the calculating executive who turns death into entertainment, in The Running Man. His cold authority gave the film its corporate villainy, making the system feel just as dangerous as the hunters on screen. That severity echoed a hard beginning. Raised in Harlem after his parents' early separation, Kotto grew up with little money amid racism and street violence. Acting became his way out, and by his late teens he was already studying seriously, finding purpose on stage rather than the streets. Breakthroughs followed with commanding performances like Othello, then screen roles in Across 110th Street and Live and Let Die. However, fame complicated his private life. Kotto married Rita Ingrid Dittman in 1959 and had 3 children before their divorce in 1976, then married Toni Pettyjohn, with whom he also had 3 children, ending in 1989. His third marriage to Tessie Sinahan in 1998 lasted until his death. Balancing demanding work with family responsibilities created long stretches of strain, especially as Hollywood offered him visibility but rarely security. Health concerns shadowed his later years. Kotto dealt with heart-related problems, a condition that added urgency to a life already marked by intensity and long working hours. Even as his film roles slowed, his television work endured, most notably as Lieutenant Al Giardello on Homicide: Life on the Street. Sadly, he passed away on March 15, 2021, at the age of 81 due to heart disease, while living near Manila, Philippines. Remembered as a trailblazer who challenged Hollywood's limits for black actors, he left behind an estimated net worth of about $5 million, earned through decades of film, television, and stage work that combined power with conscience. Jesse Ventura as Captain Freedom. Jesse Ventura was born on July 15, 1951, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, USA. At 36 years old, he played Captain Freedom, the loud, manufactured hero of the show, in The Running Man. His exaggerated bravado sharpened the film's satire, exposing how spectacle replaces truth in a media-driven culture. His toughness was shaped early. Raised in a working-class household by parents who were military veterans, Ventura grew up with discipline, financial pressure, and a constant expectation to endure. Military service during the Vietnam era hardened him further, and after returning home, he turned to professional wrestling as an outlet, building a larger-than-life persona that later carried him into acting through films like Predator and Demolition Man. Stability in his personal life contrasted with public chaos. Ventura married Teresa Terry Larson Masters in 1975, and together they raised 2 children, Tyrell and Jade. While the marriage remained steady, his transition from entertainer to politician brought intense scrutiny and controversy, especially during his tenure as governor of Minnesota. Physical wear accumulated over time. Years in wrestling left Ventura with chronic joint pain, and in 2002 he was hospitalized for a serious blood clot in his lungs, an injury that ended his wrestling career and forced a shift toward writing, commentary, and television hosting. Health became a limiting factor, but also a catalyst for reinvention. Now, Jesse Ventura is 75 years old and remains active as an author, political commentator, and media personality, dividing his time between the United States and Mexico. With an estimated net worth of around $7 million, he continues to live independently and outspokenly, a figure defined by reinvention across combat, cinema, and politics. Jim Brown as Fireball. Jim Brown was born on February 17, 1936, in St. Simons Island, Georgia, USA. At 51 years old, he played Fireball, the aging gladiator forced back into the arena, in The Running Man. His presence gave the film a sense of fatalism, reminding audiences that even legends are eventually fed back into the machine they once ruled. That weariness was earned early. Abandoned by his father, Jim was raised by his grandmother in segregated Georgia, surrounded by poverty and racial hostility that left little room for safety or softness. Sports became his only escape route. first as survival, then as destiny, carrying him north to New York. By the time he reached Syracuse University, domination followed, and that momentum exploded in the NFL. It helped him become an unstoppable force before Hollywood ever called. Fame complicated intimacy. Jim married Sue Jones in 1959 and had 3 children, but the marriage fractured under pressure, ending in divorce in 1972. Decades later, he married Monique Brown in 1997, with whom he had 2 more children. His personal life was marked by repeated controversies and allegations of domestic violence, conflicts that shadowed his public achievements and strained family bonds despite his role as a civil rights advocate. Physically, time caught up with him. Years of elite athletic punishment and advancing age brought declining health, limiting public appearances and narrowing his world. Even so, his legacy extended beyond sport into film roles like The Dirty Dozen and 100 Rifles, and into activism, where he worked directly with at-risk youth and negotiated truces between rival street gangs. Finally, he passed away on May 18, 2023, at the age of 87, from natural causes, at his home in Los Angeles, with his wife by his side. With an estimated net worth of about $30 million, he left behind a legacy both towering and conflicted. Richard Dawson as Damon Killian. Richard Dawson was born on November 20, 1932, in Gosport, England. At 55 years old, he played Damon Killian, the smiling architect of televised cruelty, in The Running Man. His performance gave the film its most chilling contrast, proving that charm, not violence, is often the face of control. That smile was shaped by instability. Growing up during World War II, Dawson was evacuated as a child, separated from normal schooling and routine as bombs fell on Britain's ports. He left school at 14 and worked as a bouncer and merchant sailor, learning early how to read people quickly and survive on wit rather than security. Comedy became his ladder out, first on British stages, then across the Atlantic. America turned him into a familiar face. Dawson broke through with Hogan's Heroes, then became a household name hosting Family Feud, where his casual intimacy with contestants defined an era of television and earned him a Daytime Emmy Award. Yet the pace of constant performance demanded long hours away from home, complicating relationships even as fame grew. His marriages reflected that tension. Dawson married actress Diana Dors in 1959, and had 2 sons before the relationship ended in divorce in 1966. Years later, he found stability with Gretchen Johnson, a former Family Feud contestant, whom he married in 1991. They had 1 daughter and remained together until his death. Heavy smoking, a habit formed during years of stress and travel, took a lasting toll on his health. Richard Dawson passed away on June 2, 2012, at the age of 79, from esophageal cancer at a hospital in Los Angeles. He was laid to rest at Westwood Memorial Park, leaving behind a modest estimated net worth of around $100,000 and a legacy defined not by wealth, but by a television persona so warm that audiences never forgot the smile, even when it turned sinister on screen. Sven-Ole Thorsen as Sven-Ole Thorsen was born on September 24, 1944, in Copenhagen, Denmark. At 43 years old, he played Sven, the imposing yet ultimately sympathetic bodyguard, in The Running Man. His quiet physical presence softened the film's brutality, adding an unexpected note of loyalty and humanity amid the spectacle. That strength was forged in a difficult environment. Growing up in post-war Denmark, Sven came of age in a society rebuilding itself, where opportunity was limited and discipline was essential. He turned to bodybuilding and martial arts as a way to impose order on uncertainty, slowly transforming raw size into controlled power. This path led him to competitive success, including winning Denmark's Strongest Man in 1983, and opened doors far beyond Scandinavia. Hollywood recognized his stature before his voice. Sven became a familiar figure in large-scale action films, often cast opposite Arnold Schwarzenegger in projects like Conan the Barbarian and Predator. Though usually playing secondary roles, his reliability and physical credibility made him indispensable, and his long collaboration with Schwarzenegger turned him into one of the most frequently recurring faces in that cinematic universe. His personal life followed a steadier rhythm. Sven married twice and had 2 sons from his first marriage, later settling into a quieter life with his wife Birgitta Eng. Years of heavy training and stunt work left their mark, with lingering injuries from sport and film shaping his gradual withdrawal from the most physically demanding roles. Today, Sven-Ole Thorsen is 82 years old and lives largely away from the spotlight, remembered fondly for a career built on consistency rather than fame. With an estimated net worth of around $1 million, his legacy rests in decades of dependable work, proof that Hollywood's giants are not always its loudest voices. Erland Van Lidth as Dynamo. Erland Van Lidth was born on June 3, 1953, in Hilversum, the Netherlands. At 34 years old, he played Dynamo, the operatic electric stalker, in The Running Man. His performance turned menace into theater, making Dynamo one of the film's most memorable and unsettling antagonists. His intensity came from a life in motion. Emigrating to the United States as a child, Erland grew up across several states, constantly adapting to new environments. Athletics and music became parallel anchors, leading him to elite amateur wrestling while also training as an opera singer. This unusual combination of brute force and refined voice set him apart, shaping early roles in films like The Wanderers and Stir Crazy. Erland's career balanced extremes. He competed at an Olympic level in wrestling, sang Wagner on stage, and acted in Hollywood, often juggling technology work alongside creative pursuits. Thanks to it, his personal life had only just found stability. Erland married Annette Friend in September 1986, and together they welcomed a son, beginning what appeared to be a new chapter after years of restless ambition. The demands of constant reinvention, however, had taken a toll on his health. Erland Van Lidth passed away on September 23, 1987, at the age of 34, from heart failure, only 1 day after his wedding anniversary. With an estimated net worth of about $500,000, he left behind a brief but extraordinary legacy, a life that burned brightly across sport, music, and film, and ended just as it seemed to find its balance. Gus Rethwisch as Buzzsaw. Gus Rethwisch was born on February 3, 1947, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, USA. At 40 years old, he played Buzzsaw, the chainsaw-wielding stalker, in The Running Man. His sheer size and feral energy turned Buzzsaw into one of the film's most physically terrifying hunters, raising the sense of real danger inside the arena. That menace grew out of a hard-working beginning. Gus was raised in a blue-collar family. He gravitated toward power sports early, using weightlifting and strength competitions as a way out of limitation. That dedication paid off when he placed 5th at the World's Strongest Man competition in 1978, proving he could stand among elite strongmen long before Hollywood noticed him. His career followed a narrow but steady path. Casting directors rarely asked him to speak, but they always needed his presence. After The Running Man, he appeared in supporting roles in Twins and later The Scorpion King, becoming one of those recognizable physical performers who quietly anchor large productions without fanfare or celebrity. The toll of that lifestyle accumulated over time. Years of heavy lifting, competitive strain, and stunt-related stress left Gus dealing with age-related health problems, gradually pushing him away from physically demanding work. Acting became more selective, and public appearances grew rarer as his body began enforcing limits that competition never had. Now, Gus Rethwisch is 79 years old and lives largely outside the spotlight. With an estimated net worth of around $1 million earned through strength sports and film work, his legacy rests in a brief but unforgettable screen presence, proof that sometimes one role delivered with absolute physical conviction is enough to be remembered. Professor Toru Tanaka, as Sub-Zero Professor Toru Tanaka was born on January 6, 1930, in Honolulu, Hawaii, USA. At 57 years old, he played Sub-Zero, the sadistic-bladed stalker, in The Running Man. His cold precision and ritualistic violence gave the film one of its most iconic villains, a character audiences still remember decades later. His discipline was shaped early. Raised in a multicultural Hawaiian household, Tanaka trained in judo and jiu-jitsu from childhood, learning control, pain tolerance, and restraint. By adulthood, he had forged a reputation as both a feared athlete and a methodical professional. Under the name Professor Toru Tanaka, he became a dominant heel in professional wrestling, winning 3 WWF Tag Team Championships and mastering the art of intimidation. When his body began to wear down, he transitioned smoothly into film, appearing in An Eye for an Eye, Missing in Action 2, and eventually, The Running Man. At home, Tanaka's life was far calmer. He married Doris Kalani in 1953, and together they raised 3 children, maintaining a stable family life even as his screen persona grew increasingly brutal. Years of wrestling and physical punishment, however, left lasting damage, and heart problems followed him into his later years. Professor Toru Tanaka passed away on August 22, 2000, at the age of 70, from heart failure. His ashes were scattered in the ocean near Haleiwa, Hawaii, a final return to the place that shaped him. With an estimated net worth of about $1 million, he is remembered not only as a fearsome villain, but as a disciplined craftsman whose real character stood in sharp contrast to the monsters he played on screen. Mick Fleetwood as Mike. Mick Fleetwood was born on June 24, 1947, in Redruth, England. At 40 years old, he played Mike, the resistance leader, in The Running Man. Though brief, the role added a strange credibility to the film's underground rebellion, carried by someone whose real-life authority came from decades of holding chaotic forces together. That authority was forged early. Growing up in a military family with a Royal Air Force pilot father meant constant relocation, unstable schooling, and little sense of rootedness. So he dropped out of school as a teenager and chased music with single-minded urgency, landing first in London's blues circuit and eventually co-founding Fleetwood Mac. Fame magnified personal fractures. Fleetwood's marriages, to Jenny Boyd, Sarah Ricoeur, and later Lynn Frankel, were repeatedly strained by touring, infidelity, and emotional distance. Romantic entanglements inside the band blurred private and professional boundaries, feeding tension that paradoxically fueled creativity during eras surrounding Rumors and Tusk. Success came at a brutal cost. During the height of Fleetwood Mac's dominance, cocaine addiction spiraled alongside reckless spending, pushing him into bankruptcy despite selling over 40 million copies of Rumors. Health scares followed, forcing him into recovery and sobriety, a slow process that required dismantling the same excess-driven culture that once sustained his career. Today, Mick Fleetwood is 79 years old, still active as a musician, curator of blues projects, and cultural elder statesman. With an estimated net worth of around $30 million, rebuilt through touring, publishing, and legacy work, his story stands as one of collapse, survival, and hard-earned endurance. Dweezil Zappa as Stevie. Dweezil Zappa was born on September 5, 1969 in Los Angeles, California. At just 18 years old, he played Stevie, the cocky game show sidekick in The Running Man. The cameo was small, but it reflected the era's fascination with celebrity offspring stepping into the spotlight early. That spotlight arrived long before he was ready. Raised inside Frank Zappa's orbit, Dweezil grew up surrounded by virtuosity, experimentation, and constant scrutiny. Music was unavoidable, yet the pressure to define himself outside his father's shadow was relentless. Learning guitar from figures like Eddie Van Halen, he built technical confidence while wrestling with expectations few teenagers face. His career became an act of balance. Early solo work like Having a Bad Day gave way to deeper purpose through Zappa Plays Zappa, where he reclaimed his father's catalog on his own terms. The project earned critical respect and culminated in a Grammy win in 2009, transforming inheritance into authorship. Family life carried its own strain. His marriage to Lauren Knudsen ended after 5 years and 2 children, followed later by marriage to Megan Marcicano. Legal battles and trust disputes within the Zappa family fractured relationships, forcing Dweezil to publicly fight for the right to perform the music that defined his upbringing. In 2026, Dweezil Zappa is 57 years old, still touring, recording, and preserving complex musical legacies. With an estimated net worth of about $4 million, his journey reflects a quieter struggle, not for fame, but for identity, autonomy, and artistic ownership. Marvin J. McIntyre as Harold Weiss. Marvin J. McIntyre was born on May 27, 1944, in the United States. At 43 years old, he played Harold Weiss, one of the unlucky contestants, in The Running Man. The role was small, but it grounded the film's brutality by showing how ordinary men were fed into a system designed to crush them. The foundations of his life were quiet. His career unfolded in fragments. He appeared in supporting parts that slipped by quickly but mattered to the texture of their films, including Pale Rider and later Back to the Future Part 3, where he played the Undertaker, Mr. Phipps. These roles never brought stardom, yet they placed him inside enduring cinematic worlds that continue to be rediscovered. Now, Marvin J. McIntyre is 82 years old and lives a largely private life away from Hollywood. With an estimated net worth of around $500,000, his legacy rests in consistency. A career built not on fame, but on showing up, doing the work, and becoming part of films that outlived their moment. Kurt Fuller, as Tony Kurt Fuller, was born on September 16, 1953, in San Francisco, California, USA. At 34 years old, he played Tony, a slick television figure, in The Running Man. His sharp delivery and corporate edge reinforced the film's satire, embodying the smug machinery behind the spectacle. That confidence grew from stability. Raised in a supportive environment, Kurt followed an academic path that led him to UC Berkeley, earning a degree in English literature. The grounding in language and performance shaped his timing and precision. These traits later defined his career as a character actor. Roles in Ghostbusters 2 and Wayne's World established him as a reliable presence, while television became his true stronghold. His long run on Psych and later appearances on Supernatural turned him into a familiar face audiences trusted, even when playing morally ambiguous figures. At home, his life remained anchored. Married to Jessica Hendra since 1993, Kurt balanced a demanding career with raising 2 daughters, avoiding the volatility that derailed many actors of his generation. That balance allowed longevity, where others burned out. Today, Kurt Fuller is 73 years old, still active in film and television. With an estimated net worth of about $3 million, his career stands as a testament to endurance, proof that staying power, not headlines, can quietly build a lasting place in Hollywood. Nearly 4 decades later, The Running Man isn't just a sci-fi thriller anymore. It's a time capsule of lives changed by fame, struggle, loss, and survival. From rising stars to quiet disappearances, the cast's journeys then and now tell a far deeper story than the game ever did. Which transformation surprised you the most? And whose story hit you the hardest in 2026? If you enjoyed this deep dive, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next Then and Now story.